Did you have a good Mother's Day?
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, I had a family brunch yesterday. Mom's actually right here. So
She's at the show today?
Yeah.
There
she is.
Hey, there's your mom. Hi, Mom. Hi, Mom. She's beautiful. Oh, great. Where's Mom from? Where's Mom from?
She grew up in southern Indiana and then all around the country. Her dad was in the Army, so she's from a little bit of everywhere, but settled in South Bend about 40 years ago with my dad, and I came on the scene pretty soon after that.
Yeah, exactly. You've been busy this past week. You got insulted by the President of the United States.
Yeah, that's how you know you made it.
Yeah, absolutely. He called you Alfred E. Newman.
Yeah. What do you think?
The President of the United States called you that. Wow. What goes through your mind when that happens?
You know, we talk a lot about elevating the dialogue, so I guess the fact that I inspired him to make a literary reference, possibly for the first time.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Not bad. Everyone is talking about your age and now how young you are. You're 37 years old.
Yeah.
But you were mayor at when, 29?
Yeah, I was 29 when I got elected, so it's my 8th year now.
Wow. And when you, this is a dumb question, but when you're the mayor, do you give out keys to the city and stuff still?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's one of your most important ceremonial duties.
They still do that?
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah,
Okay,
it's nice. It's very kind of gold-plated, or at least it looks like it.
Who is anyone famous you ever given the key to?
Yeah, well, one of the first ones I did was for Jerry Seinfeld, but I had to trick him into accepting it. So
He didn't want it?
Yeah. So I found out he was coming to South Bend. He was performing at our Morris Civic Auditories, this beautiful theater we have in South Bend. And I thought, this is a major American cultural figure. I'm a new mayor. I'm like, I better give him a key to the city.
Absolutely.
So we had it made up. I had a little plaque, said, thanks for all the laughs, Jerry, And we said to his team, it's cool if he wants to do a low-key backstage thing. That's fine. However Jerry wants to do it. For me to give him the key, and then the day the event rolls around, and we haven't heard back, and finally they say, oh, no, he doesn't want to do it. It's an election year. He doesn't do anything political.
Jerry Seinfeld said no to the key to the
Yeah,
city?
so then I went back to the office and I checked with our secretary. He'd been there for like 15 years. I was like, is there any record of someone ever refusing a key to the city?
This is such an episode of Seinfeld.
Yeah. Is that true?
I don't want the key to the city.
Right.
I don't want to be able to get in. I want to be locked out.
So
I want to be locked out of the city. I don't want to be in. You keep the key.
Yeah, but now it's like a crisis of civic prestige, right? Because I don't want to be the first mayor ever to have the key to the city refused.
Yes.
And I'll be damned if Jerry Seinfeld's going to do that to me, right? So I'm thinking, all right, what do we do? What do we do? And I got a ticket to the show. I had the key with me. Got there, got a nice seat close to the front. He gave this great stand-up. His stand-up is fantastic.
He's one of the best.
And at the end, there's a people loved it, so he comes back out, but there's no encore. He just started taking questions. First questions like, I don't know, what was Kramer like off the set or whatever, and then I thought, now's my chance. So I waved my hand real high, and he calls on me. And my question, of course, was, will you accept the key to the city?
Yes!
So,
this guy gets it done!
yeah, before
You can't say no, right?
No, he was like, what's that? The key to the city? And then, by the time he said that, I was up there. They couldn't stop me because it was a city facility. Gave him the key, gave a wave, got out of there. Nobody refuses the key to the city.
That's exactly right. Don't mess with this guy. You're very proud about your time in the military. You spent some time in Afghanistan. Is this,
Oh, yeah.
This is, what year is this?
That's 2014.
And do you remember this scene?
Yeah, that was probably the best day of my deployment. So one of the side projects we did, I was stationed in Kabul, but I worked with the chaplain's office. People kept sending humanitarian goods, and so they needed people who were qualified on a rifle, because you had to have that qualification for some of us to take a vehicle outside the wire in order to get these goods to this orphanage. We had, I can't remember how much, it was like 600 or 800 pounds of stuff people sent, school supplies and clothes. And so we went into the city and we wound up meeting all these kids. There was a Boy Scout program going on at this orphanage. It was this reminder that, even in the middle of a war, most people's full-time job during a war is not to be in a war. They're going about their lives. And it was a reminder of just kind of the humanity that is there in this hauntingly beautiful city, even as this awful situation was going on around them.
Yeah, what do you do as a kid?
The thing is, they're just kids, right? They behave like kids anywhere. They're running around, got candy, they're joking, and you just think about what's the future for a child. in a country like this. But there was a lot of really good work going on with some of the organizations, like the group called PARSA that ran this orphanage. And I wonder what happened to some of those kids that are in those pictures.
That's nice that you did that and gave us your time. Now that you're on the road and you're talking to everybody and you're campaigning, what is the big issue that is being brought up?
Yeah, well, we're talking a lot about democratic reform, just because I think all the issues we care about, of which I think climate is probably the most pressing. But it's going to be hard to deal with any issue as long as Congress is set up with districts where politicians are choosing their voters instead of the other way around. For my dime, we ought to elect our president just by national popular vote. Just count up the votes and give it to the person who gets the most votes. So there's a lot of structural reform we got to do, but also climate. Climate's a life and death issue, especially for my generation and those coming after. For the rest of our lives, our chances in life will be partly decided by whether or not our economy can survive all the climate disruption going on. As a mayor, we've already had to deal with historic flooding. We had a once-in-a-1,000-year flood followed by a once-in-a-500-year flood, they told us, 2 years apart. So it's a huge issue.
What can we do?
Well, there's a lot of things we know we could do right away. Major federal investment in renewables, carbon storage, energy storage. There's also a plan called a carbon tax and dividend. Basically, you set a price on things that put carbon into the atmosphere, but then you can rebate that back out to the American people. So most of us would actually be economically better off if we did it. Meanwhile, it would help change the economic incentives so that you'd see less activity that hurts the environment, because the true cost is not reflected in the price of, for example, energy that comes from coal. If you were facing the true cost of it, you'd have to set that price a lot higher.
Is it money? Is that what you're really fighting?
That's part of it. There's obviously a fossil fuel industry that is really committed to keeping things the way they are, which is why our campaign signed a pledge that we're not going to accept any funding from the fossil fuel industry.
Really? Final question, very important. Who do you think will be on the throne at the end of Game of Thrones?
All right, so we've been campaigning pretty hard, so I no spoilers. I'm an episode behind.
No, me too. Don't say. Good.
Okay.
Oh,
Right,
I'm going to say. Okay.
So.
This is fantastic. We can talk all night.
Up until this season, I was pretty much on Team Daenerys. I felt like she was really growing in her leadership style.
Of course.
I'm a little concerned now, based on what I've seen in the last few episodes, that her kind of management approach is kind of got some issues. So
her management approach.
I'm kind of back to square one. I don't know. I'm rooting for Jon Snow. Maybe not the brightest, but definitely, got a good heart.
Wow.
Tough to say.
What a great answer to a Game of Thrones question. You put a lot of thought into it. I appreciate that. Thank you. Mayor Pete Buttigieg, everybody.
On and on and on. I said, and it's on and on and on.